need Goldman Sachs? Why do we need Morgan Stanley? Let them fail. The government tries to blame all the economic problems that we have today on the fact that they let Lehman Brothers go out of business. Meanwhile, they bailed out everybody else and we're in this gigantic mess. Maybe it's not because they let Lehman fail. Maybe it's because of the other bailouts. But no, now they want to make us believe that since Lehman Brothers failed, they can't let anybody fail. We don't need all these investment banks. And if they go away, it's not going to mean that brokerage is going to stop, that investment banking is going to stop. It's just going to be done by somebody else. There are a lot of small firms out there like mine that are expanding, that will expand even more if the government gets out of the way. But instead, the government is rewarding the incompetent people and keeping them in business, and they're punishing all the competent people. Meanwhile, look at the bonuses. Look at the amount of money that is being paid to Wall Street executives using bailout money. I mean, how can these guys be entitled to make multi-million-dollar a year salaries when their companies are losing a fortune based on what they're doing? I mean, let them fail. Let them go out of business. But the stimulus, what is it that the government is trying to do with the stimulus? The government is trying to recreate the conditions that led to the crisis. Because when they talk about stimulating the economy, they're not talking about stimulating economic growth. They're talking about stimulating spending. They want us going back to the auto showrooms, back to the malls, and buying more stuff. And they want us going deeper into debt to pay for it. And if we're not willing to accumulate the debt on our own, well, then the government will do it for us. As if this is the secret. If they can just spend enough money, then the economy is just going to magically grow again. And that's all nonsense. The only reason it worked before, and it really didn't work, was because we were able to borrow the money from the rest of the world and spend it. And we were able to live in the delusion that we were getting richer even as we were getting poorer because we looked at our asset prices, right? We were looking at real estate and stock prices going up, and we said, hey, we're actually getting wealthier, even as we were getting poorer, because we were spending money instead of saving money. And as we spent money, we counted that spending as GDP. And so as long as our GDP was rising, we thought our economy was growing. But the whole time our GDP was actually going up, we weren't measuring real economic growth. We were measuring how much wealth we had been destroying or dissipating because we were simply spending. And we thought we were okay because some appraisers said that our house was worth more or the stock market was still going up. But all that was an illusion. And now that those bubbles have burst, there's no way to go back to it. Stock prices, I don't care, you're going to have ups and downs, but stocks in the United States are still expensive. Based on any kind of historic measure of value, the PEs are high and the yields are low. Stocks are overpriced. Houses are overpriced. Our assets are still overpriced despite the fact that they've fallen. Meanwhile, our whole economy is phony. The malinvestments that we have now is this entire service sector economy. We built an economy based on the idea that we can borrow and spend money in perpetuity. And that was just as phony as the idea that real estate prices would always rise. So we have a lot of Americans that are working in jobs that they really shouldn't be in. We got a lot of Americans that work in retail, that work in shopping centers, that work in restaurants, that work in financial services. There are a whole host of Americans employed doing things that they really shouldn't do because, we're too broke to patronize their businesses. We need more Americans making stuff, producing things. And in order to have American labor available for productive capacity, they have to leave where they are right now. That somebody has to lose their job in the service sector in order to get a job in goods production. And of course, in order to get a job in goods production, we need capital. You can't produce anything without machines, without tools. Where's that stuff going to come from? You just can't wave a wand. You're going to have savings. Somebody's going to have to be able to borrow the money to make those investments, which means Americans are going to have to save their money. Or we're going to have to convince somebody in another country to take their savings and invest it in America, not just lend it to us